Good evening all. On behalf of the weekly webinar series conducted by IEEE Malabar subsection in association with IEEE Malabar Hub, I extend a warm welcome to each one of you gathered here for the 59th webinar on improving trustworthiness in AI for medical imaging. Today, we are honored to have with us Dr. B. Lakshmi Priya, Postdoctoral Fellow, Department of Surgical Gastroenterology, JIPMA, Puducherry. She is a highly motivated faculty with an academic experience spanning more than 12 years in research in healthcare and knowledge upgradation in research interest. She is also the resource person for the conduction of hands-on sessions at Velo University, PES University, CMR IT Hyderabad, and MOP Vaishnav College for Women, Chennai. Her research interests include predictive analysis through artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning, liver CT imaging, pattern recognition, image processing, technical tools proficiency, 3D modeling using SimpleWare Scan IP, MATLAB, and Python for machine learning and deep learning. Dr. B. Lakshmi Priya is also a co-investigator in the UGC minor research project entitled An Effective Framework for the Detection and Diagnosis of Liver Tumor through Image Processing Techniques. And she has received grant from ICMR for workshop on artificial intelligence-enabled translational research in health informatics. She is a gold medalist in Master of Engineering in Applied Electronics and has been awarded by IEEE Madras section in recognition of publication in IEEE Journal of Biomedical and Health Informatics. She has the credit of being the top performing mentor of NPTEL, IIT Madras, and is also the topper in NPTEL course on medical image analysis. So with huge respect and admiration, let me now invite Dr. B. Lakshmi Priya to start the session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. I feel honored to be a part of this webinar series conducted by IEEE Malabar subsection. Before starting the session, I would like to thank the organizing committee members. A special thanks to Dr. Sabik sir for giving me an opportunity to present in this webinar. So I think we can start the session. Am I audible? Shall I start the presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, fine. So the topic I have chosen for today's presentation is improving trustworthiness in AI-based in medical imaging, in AI for medical imaging. Every one of us, I hope, will agree with me that the technology artificial intelligence is witnessing a great boom in almost all applications. May it be healthcare, banking, finance, or data security, or self-driving cars like automotive transportation, online marketing, whatever may be the field, it is being employed. It is being applied in all those fields. But still the title is improving trustworthiness. So does that mean can't we trust the technology? If we are not able to trust the technology, then how come we can deploy it in our real-time applications? So there is something lagging in this particular technology, and that something is what we are going to see for the next 1 hour session. So I have organized my content, divided my content into 3 parts. So initially I'll be saying about the basics of artificial intelligence, a very shallow introduction, and then how it is being applied in medical diagnosis field, then followed by what is the second session, second part of the presentation, I'll deal with the weaknesses in the current AI systems. And then in the third section or third part of my presentation, we will be seeing about what are the methods according to my perspective to improve the trustworthiness in the AI-based system. And in all the 3 parts, I have included case studies mostly relevant to the medical diagnostic systems. So to begin with, These are the three buzzwords in the current scenario, like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. So, though artificial intelligence is very predominantly used in many of the real-time applications, this is not a new technology. The inception of this technology dates back to some 1950s, late 1950s, but only now it is witnessing, after 2012 to be exact, it started to be deployed in various fields. So why this much time it has taken, let us see a few minutes later. And what is artificial intelligence? So we are feeding intelligence to the machines. Why to feed intelligence to the machines? To make machines to think like human. By thinking, I mean that there is some decision making process involved in the technology. Okay. So now, how this decision making is being done? I'll say an example. A patient is approaching a doctor to get diagnosed to some diseases. Let us assume to be a dengue disease. So what doctor normally does is he'll examine the patient for some symptoms like fever, then vomiting, and then headache, and some blood test reports. And then based on those symptoms, he will make a decision whether the patient is suffering from that disease or not. So likewise, if you want to make this decision to be made by a system or a computer, then we have to what we have to do is we have to make a program, a software. It's purely a software programming. We have to give the input. The programmer will frame certain set of rules, and then it will come out with the output. Rules in the sense with some nested if else condition. If a fever temperature is greater than some degree, and then if vomiting, etc. If the blood test reports says in favor of the symptom, then the doctor will make a decision. Likewise, the program will also come out with the output. So this is what is artificial intelligence to begin with. Now just imagine, instead of if dengue, if some other disease like Ebola or current COVID-19, so it may have different huge number of symptoms, varied symptoms for different patients, and at a different demographic or geographic level. So if that is the case, then the programming will be a complex one. So we have to programming will be complex one. We have to form the programming will be complex, and we have to frame a set of rules considering huge variety of symptoms. So in that case, that is the reason artificial intelligence was not so popular. Why? Because the programming was so tedious, and as the as the number of rules are getting increasing, then the accuracy of the system will come down. That is what is the major problem with the artificial intelligence. And then later in 1960s or early 1970s, the term machine learning was coined. It is a subset of artificial intelligence, wherein we will learn from the experience. The machine will learn from the past experience. So we have to give input, like the past data has to be given to the system as input. For example, we have all the patient's data. The same example I'm considering, all the patient's data of the hospital who have come for diagnosis prior to the programming. And then along with the data, we have to give the output also, that is the diagnosis. Now what this machine learning algorithm will do is, it will do a mapping between the input and the output. Input is our data and output will be our diagnosis or simply the output. Now the rule is framed by the machine learning algorithm. In contrast, in artificial intelligence system, we are giving the input, we are framing the rule, and the system will come out with the output. But here we will give the input and also the output. It is the headache of the system to come out to frame the rules. So that is what is the major difference between a traditional programming and a machine learning programming. It totally avoided the explicit programming. it totally avoided the programming part. Automatically, the programming will be done. I mean, automatically the rules will be framed and the system will come out with the rule. Now, if we give any unknown data, the system will make a prediction. So this made a different perspective of the artificial intelligence technology, and then it started developing. But still, in the after for the past one decade, this technology has witnessed a great, tremendous growth. That is due to the advent of the technology deep learning, which is considered to be another subset of machine learning. So what this deep learning does is it tends to mimic the human brain. So that is what is the this is where the breakthrough has happened in this technology, and it's being employed in variety of applications. Now, what is the difference between machine learning and deep learning is normally, so I'll not be talking in depth about any of the technical content. I'll just give a shallow overview. So here in the machine learning, from the data may be either image or signal or voice, text or tabulated form, anything the data may be. From the data, some useful informative patterns have to be extracted, and then from those handcrafted patterns, it will be fed into a classifier, and the classifier will make a decision or a prediction. So here in the example I have considered as a classifying a vehicle image as either as car, truck, bicycle, or any other vehicle we have to do. So in the machine learning algorithm, we have to go for some handcrafting of features. So feature is nothing but useful informative patterns from the image. And then that has to be fed into the classifier. Let us assume the classifier is an artificial neural network. So I hope everyone knows what is basically an artificial neural network. So the artificial neural network, the weights of the neuron has to be learned during the training, and then classification will be done. Now coming to deep learning, this handcrafting of features, handcrafted feature extraction will be totally avoided. Why? Because in machine learning, irrespective of the data, the accuracy is dependent only on what feature I am extracting. So to avoid that, here, in addition to learning the weights of the classifier, the system will also learn the features by itself. That is what is deep learning. Since it is learning the features by itself, we call that as an automated feature extraction. It is actually, in fact, it is the learning the features. And now, because of this automatic learning of features and avoiding the handcrafting of features, this deep learning with more number of input images or more data, more volume of data, it is witnessing a great accuracy, improved accuracy. So now, throughout this session, I may be interchangeably using the word artificial intelligence or ML or DL, but what I actually mean by these words is, I mean deep learning. And then coming to the deep neural network architectures, there are a variety of architectures, but the most prominent architecture is convolutional neural network, and a variant of convolutional neural networks are also there. RCNN, fast RCNN, faster RCNN, YOLO. So these are actually deployed for image related things. And then recurrent neural network. It is basically employed for time series data, like signal or like predicting the next word in the sentence, something like that. Then the other architectures, autoencoders and GANs, generative adversarial network, they tend to generate images from the input images, or then generate data from the input data. So here I will be dealing about the convolutional neural network. Since the topic is medical imaging, convolutional neural network is predominantly employed for imaging based deep learning architecture. So I'll stick on with the convolutional neural network. So what is convolutional neural network and how it is learning the features? I said 2 slides before, it is automatically learning the features by itself. So it will have, the architecture will have a series of convolution and pooling layers. Here I have shown only 2 layers, but in real architecture, there will be some n number of convolution and pooling layers. And it is where the prominent features are learned in the neural network, in the architecture. And once the features are learned, they will be given to a classifier, which is normally a feed-forward, similar to a feed-forward neural network, and then the classification will be done. So till now, the image-based classification is going on like this, and even with the other architectures like RCNN, other YOLO, and so this is the base architecture. So what exactly it is learning is, it is actually learning the convolutional filter kernels weight is being learned. Like here, this -1, -2, 0, 0, all these are edge detection filter, but here relevant to the image, input image under consideration, this feature, filter weights will be learned. What actually it is learning? To give an insight, I have chosen an example of face recognition problem. And let us assume there are some 10 to 15 series of stack of convolutional and pooling layers. So in the initial layer, what actually it learns is the edges. So where there is a difference in the pixel intensity, that will be captured as the edges. So those edges are called to be low level features. And these edges will be given as input to the next layers. And in the next layer, what actually happens is the adjacent edges will be combined, and then some abstract pattern will be formed. So in this example, so if you combine the adjacent edges, what we actually get is the object within the face. What are the objects within the face? It may be eyes, nose, or lips, or eyebrows, and so on. So this is what it's being learned in the middle layers. And they correspond, in this example, they correspond to the organs within the face. And now these features will be given as input to the other deeper layers. So in the deeper layer, what actually happens is the organs, adjacent features, which are nothing but the organs, they will be combined and an abstract representation of face will be formed. I hope you can see it in this particular part of the slide. So the low level features are the edges, high level features are the organs within the face, and the middle level features are the organs within the face, and high level features are the abstract representation of the face. And now these face features will be given as input to the classifier, and the classification or the prediction will be done in a softmax layer. Now, so with this basic introduction, let us move on to the first part of the agenda, what I said, that is the applications of AI in medical imaging. So here I have considered some, I have actually shown some 4 applications. The first one is the classification. This classification is a very general term, and in the healthcare, we can call that as a computer aided diagnosis. So what actually is being done over here is, you will be given an image. In that image, for example, in this leftmost image, we have a liver CT image, and from the that image, you have to classify it as either HCC or ICC. This is what is the class I have taken. HCC means hepatocellular carcinoma. Basically, it's a primary liver cancer. And ICC means intrahepatic cholangiocarcinoma, which is a secondary liver cancer. So given an image, it will say whether it is a primary cancer or a secondary cancer. This is what is called classification. Another example for the case of lung images, and for skin cancer, and then for brain images I have given. So the first application is the computer aided diagnosis, and the architecture that is being used here is the convolutional neural network. In short, we call it as CNN. Second application is localization, or generic name for this application is object detection, but in case of medical imaging, we call it as a localization. What actually it does is, I know now the image is being classified as a cancer. The image, it is said that this is a cancer image. Now, where within the image, the cancer is actually there, the lesion. Lesion means any abnormal part of the region, image. So where exactly the lesion is there? That part I want to localize. That is what is the localization. So here the red and blue colored rectangles denote the ground truth and the actual finding of the network. So this is what is the second application. So here the architectures that are employed for here is region CNN, that is RCNN, fast RCNN, faster RCNN, and YOLO architectures are being deployed. Then third one is segmentation. We know what is segmentation. Segmenting a portion of the image, a part of the image from the entire image is what segmentation. And this segmentation, we have seen many algorithms, image processing based algorithms, wherein region growing and some other edge detection algorithms are there. But coming to the medical imaging, in most cases, segmenting a particular organ from the medical images like CT or MRI is highly challenging. Why? Because I've taken an example of liver, because I'm working with liver image, so most examples will be on that only. So now, if you take an abdominal CT image, it will have many number of, organs in addition to the liver. In addition to liver, you will have spleen, stomach, pancreas. In some slices, even the heart will be seen, left kidney, right kidney, and many other adjacent organs will be there. So here, other challenges throughout the entire series of images, the shape of the liver, volume, and area of the image, area of the liver will be different. So this makes, if some algorithm, image processing based algorithm works well for one slice, it may not work well for the other slice. So here also, for the purpose of segmentation, artificial intelligence or simply deep learning is being employed, and the architectures which are used is called SegNet, and UNet is a type of a SegNet architecture. So here, this is somewhat complex when compared to CNN. And the fourth application I have considered over here is a very vital thing, and very less research is going on in this particular field. So what is that application is, normally either CT or MRI, the scan will not be captured just from a bare body. Normally, if we do directly scan or go for a scan images, we call it as plain CT or plain MRI. What happens is, there will not be any discrimination between the normal and the abnormal part of the organ. So I have taken an example of brain CT. So to overcome this, what radiologists will do is, they will inject a contrast agent into the patient's body prior to capturing the, prior to scanning. So what this contrast agent will do is, it will very clearly discriminate between the normal and the abnormal parts of the organ. See, in this particular first image, the dosage is some 0.01 dosage is given, 0.1 dosage is given, and the discrimination is very clearly seen. And with a very 10% of the dosage, there is no discrimination between the normal and the, abnormality. But what is the problem with the contrast is, it may cause some side effects. So that is the reason when people are going for scan, they may develop some acute kidney failure. The reason is because of this contrast agent, they may develop kidney, it may go till kidney failures. So to overcome this, currently the research is going on to generate a high contrast image from a low contrast image. This is what is a low contrast. From this low contrast image, we are going to artificially generate an image which is equivalent to the standard dose CT or MRI. So here, this is the actual MRI image. Sorry, this is a CT image. And here, the actual dosage is this part. Here, this is the proposed one. This is nothing but it is artificially generated image. So almost to certain extent, to 90%, the discrimination is very well seen in the artificially generated image. Now, with this introduction, let me go to some case studies in the medical imaging based research, deep learning for medical diagnosis. The first application I have chosen, first research I have chosen is segmenting the stent in the fluoroscopy images of heart. Then here deep learning framework. This particular paper deals with the response, predicting the response. If I give any input to the, for patients suffering from cancer, if we give a treatment, what will be the response of the patient to the treatment? That is predicted well in advance prior to giving the treatment, and that is what is this paper all about. Third one is to estimate the age of the brain, age of the people from the MRI images, brain images. And similarly, to very accurately detect the bleed within the cerebral from the MRI, deep learning technology is being employed. And this is one of my favorite paper. Efficient multi-organ localization in CT image using 3D region proposal network. Why? Because why I said this is my favorite is, I said segmentation itself is a challenging task, segmenting one organ, but one algorithm will segment all the organs in the image. So that is what is the beauty of this paper. If you are given with an abdominal CT image, it will segment the liver, it will segment the kidney, it will segment the pancreas, stomach, and all other things. And that is where the other beauty of this paper is, not only for one particular image, it will work for many different types of image. It will work for abdominal CT image, it will work, the same algorithm will work for brain image, and so on. So this is a very informative paper, and this is my own work, wherein we have generated artificially we have generated respiratory signals from using generative adversarial network architecture. And this is one of my one of the module in my PhD work, where we have derived a classifier from GoogleNet architecture to effectively classify liver lesions from the CT images. So the black ones are all the boxes, the blocks in the black color are already there in the GoogleNet, and the one which I have highlighted in the red color are the one we have modified, and then this has produced a better accuracy when compared to the original GoogleNet architecture. This is another module of my PhD work, wherein we have, from the CT images, we have reconstructed the 3D model of the liver, very highly discriminating the healthy and the tumor portion of the liver. So this is, and also it will calculate the volume of the liver, volume of the tumor also. This is our work. And this is another work similar to the work we have done. The volume of the liver, 3D model of the liver will be calculated, and then from the module, from the volume of the liver, for every cancer, the treatment will be either radiation therapy or the chemoembolization. And prior to going for radiation therapy, from the volume artificially, they are calculating the amount of dosage, radiation dosage prior to the radiation therapy is being estimated. Just imagine, from the organ which is deep inside the human body, we are calculating the volume of that organ and volume of the lesion within that organ. And from that, we are actually estimating the amount of radiation dosage. Because radiation therapy is has more severe side effects. So to avoid, to certain extent to avoid, this is being done in practice. And this is a work done in 2012. After this, the similar kind of work is being employed for many different types of cancer, like prostate cancer, and then breast cancer, and so on. So now we have seen the huge impact of deep learning system in medical diagnosis, but still the topic is improving trustworthiness, which means definitely there is some loophole in this technology. And now we are going to see that loophole, what are they. So this, I have taken the shortcomings from the, I have taken the shortcomings from the recent news. The first one is this AI technology is employed in airport for passport verification, and miserably for the East Asian people, it is not working well because they have small eye and that is being detected as eyes are closed. So here, this is one example wherein AI fails. The second one is this AI system is being deployed as judge in a beauty contest, and what it had done is, by beauty, it means it has judged only the skin with fairer complexion. So it has actually discriminated the darker skin, and here also the system has failed. And the most miserable one is self-driving car, Uber self-driving car in Arizona state of United States. It has killed a pedestrian. Why? Because it has not properly identified the human. So somewhere the deep learning algorithm failed to identify a human. That is, in this particular crucial high risk applications, it is this one person, killing one person cannot be compensated at all. So similarly, in the Amazon and Google Translate, Facebook, they have faced some failure in AI-based systems. So why this failure is occurring, that is what we are going to see now. And coming to the medical application, this is a skin cancer image. The ground truth is benign cancer. It is a benign. Benign means it is not. It is a non-cancerous tumor. And now, when this is being classified with the deep learning classifier with a high level of confidence, it is correctly classified as benign. But now, when a small amount of noise is added, why we are adding noise to image? Currently, we can capture the image and we can transmit it to the doctor who's somewhere else, like a telemedicine application we can send. By capturing an image through a mobile phone or a camera, we are actually introducing some noise. And even while if you are transmitting through some WhatsApp or email, again some transmission noise is involved. It may be either transmission noise or noise due to compression, whatever it may be, there's some noise is getting added. Now, because of this noise, from the human eye perspective, there is no much difference between the image, original image and the noise added image. But the deep learning algorithm, it also looks at the noise pattern that is being added in the image. And finally, when this image is given to a computer-aided diagnostic system, it is being misinterpreted as a malignant. So totally the diagnosis is changing. So this is what is a very huge failure of AI, we can say. This is one thing. And another one, even if you slightly rotate the image, because while capturing the image over phone, if you are having skin cancer, no need to go for some scan. Directly, we can capture the image and send to doctor. So while capturing, if there is slight misorientation also, again, the diagnosis getting changed. So let me stick on with this particular example of AI failure in medical imaging, and we'll try to find out what is the reason or cause for the failure. The cause is the algorithms are not robust enough. Even if there's some minute noise added or some rotation, it may result in misdiagnosis, false diagnosis. Now, how to overcome that? So here, from my perspective, from the literature survey recently I have done, and from other articles I have read in the past 4-5 months, I am proposing 3 steps to build a trustworthy AI. And the first step is develop robust algorithm. Do that mean CNN are not robust enough? Definitely they are not. We'll see the reason why first. First we'll see why CNN is not robust, and then we'll propose some solution to overcome that. So here, Geoffrey Hinton, he is considered to be one of the godfathers of deep learning. He is the one who framed backpropagation algorithm in artificial neural network, and currently he is associated with Google Brain team. What he says is, major blunder the CNN is doing is in the max pooling layers. So every convolution layer is followed by max pooling layer in the CNN architecture. So what this max pooling layer will do is, it will remove the redundant redundancy, and then it will pass it on to the next layer. So while doing so, what it does is it is losing most of the information. So this is the major reason why most of the CNNs are failing. Now I've taken some 6 examples of phase, and just we'll try to make a prediction what CNN will do. The first case, so I hope this is the ground truth, it is a phase, and CNN will also identify this as phase. Now coming to the second one, it has, definitely you all agree with me, this is not a phase because the position of the ellipse is changed, but still CNN will make a decision in favor of phase. Definitely this is a wrong prediction. And then the third image, everything is scrambled. Eyes position and organs within the face are translated, shifted on, then some shearing, some sort of transformation is there. But still the CNN will make a decision as face. So the first one is correct. The other 2 are wrong. The next is same as the one. And now the next 5th image, it is exactly correct. Only thing is it is rotated slightly, but still CNN will make a decision that it is not a phase. Similarly, for the last one, the rotation is in the different direction. Again, it is not a phase. So here out of the 6 images, only for 2 cases, the prediction is correct. And for the other 4 cases, the prediction is not correct. Now, what is the reason? The reason is, so CNN is actually looking for the existence of object within the picture. For example, here it is just looking for the mid-level features. What are the mid-level features? I said eyes, eyebrows, nose, lips. 2 eyes are there, 2 eyebrows are there, nose is there, and lips is there. So it is making a decision that it is a face. That is a wrong thing. And here, what it actually does is it looks for the existence of the object, but it fails to look at the spatial relationship between the object. That is what is the problem with CNN. And coming to the second row of images, slightly tilted images are also not detected as face. So before that, I would like to say one thing. Those who have worked with CNN architecture, you know that we first will create an image data store, and then we'll create one augmented data store by means of some rotation and translation. What for basically it is being done is it is actually done to augment the database. Suppose if the data set what I have is not sufficient, we can increase the number of images in that. That is the augmentation. But actually, apart from that, it performs another role of making the CNN architecture to be accurate. So while doing the augmentation, suppose if I have mentioned this, let us assume this is 20-degree rotation. If I have mentioned 20-degree rotation in the augmentation, CNN will make a decision that it is a face. Not so here. CNN is actually looking for the objects and it is not bothering about the spatial relationship between the objects and the rotation. So this is the major issues with CNN. So the actual limitation, we can summarize it as viewpoint invariance. Viewpoint means capturing the image by means of a camera at different angles. So there are 2 types of viewpoint: translation and rotation. Translation means simply shifting its location. So CNN doesn't worry about it, and the translation part, it is working well. But when it comes to invariance, it is not working well. What is this rotation invariance? If the input is rotated, my output of the CNN should also be rotated. See here, convolution of these 2 kernel, it is producing like this. In the second one, if the input is rotated, the output is also getting rotated to the same amount. So if this is the case, then it is rotation invariance. But CNN is not like that. So the convolution of the rotated object is resulting in some other scrambled output. So this is the major drawback of CNN, and this is what we have to take care of while deploying or while developing a deep learning algorithm. And how to overcome that instead of having a convolutional neural network, we can go for capsule networks. And again, this is being proposed by Geoffrey Hinton. Just in 2018, this work is being proposed, and very few research is there in the capsule networks. What is this capsule network? Instead of having one neuron, we'll encapsulate different neurons within one capsule-like arrangement. That is what is capsule network. So here, just a pictorial representation. If this is the image, I said more than one neurons are enclosed within the capsule, which means one neuron, similar object with different orientation have to be encapsulated within one capsule as a single entity. So here, this is the image, the roof of the hut, the greeny portion of the tree and the trunk of the tree, everything are being considered as the part within the object, part within the image. So while giving the input to the neuron, along with the actual input, we are also feeding the orientation. See here, the orientation, three-dimensional orientation is also fed into the capsule. If we do so, then we can avoid the rotation inverters. So this, we'll see what is the difference between a capsule and a neuron. Capsule is nothing but a group of neurons. And for a traditional neuron, the input will be scalar, whereas here, and along with the magnitude, we are also giving some, we are also giving some direction or orientation. So the input will obviously become a vector. And normally we'll go for ReLU or sigmoid or tanh activation function in a traditional neural network, whereas here we'll go for a squash activation function. So here everything is going to be vector input and the output is also going to be a vector output. So example here, this is a single neuron and this is the output of the neural network. It will make a prediction, some 7. So here we have two neurons within one capsule in the case of capsule network. In one neuron, we'll give the actual object with 0-degree orientation. And in the second neuron, we'll give the same object with some rotation angle, we'll give it. So the output also, instead of producing the probability alone as output, it will produce probability and the angle with which, what is the orientation with respect to 0-degree will be produced. See here, I think you can understand over here. This is the traditional neural network. The output will, at every layer, it will produce only probability as the output, but here it will produce, along with the probability, it will also produce the orientation. So here, the input and output are vector. So by doing so, the performance of the capsule network can be made accurate. So here we have a capsule network. Initially, there is a convolution layer, but please check it. There is no dimensionality reduction. That is, there is no max pool layers. And later, capsule layers are being added into the capsule network. So if we do so, the first image is a phase. CNN output is also phase. Capsule network is also giving an output of phase. Now consider this image. The ground truth is a phase, but if you give this as an input to the CNN, it will produce not a phase. It will give an output that it is not a phase. But capsule network will correctly predict that it is also phase, but tilted to some angle. Next one, the scrambled portion of the phase. All the relevant objects are within the image, but CNN will make a wrong prediction, whereas capsule network will produce correct prediction. So to some extent, not to some extent, to major extent, the drawback of CNN is overcome in capsule network. But what is the drawback or the challenge in the capsule network is, so CNN itself is a complex operation. Here for every neuron, we are giving vector input and it is producing vector output. So it is highly computationally complex. So you need a very specialized GPU to perform. Now this, with having capsule network as a base, then segmentation capsule, explainable capsules, all these things can be developed. We'll see some case studies. This capsule network is deployed for COVID-19 diagnosis, and then the same thing is deployed for vertebral images, classification of vertebral images, then for lung cancer and all those things it is being deployed. And again, I'm saying there is no much research in capsule network. So those who are starting your research, you can work in this direction of capsule network, not only for healthcare, but for any images. Very few research is there in this particular field. Now coming to the second solution. Again, I'm saying this is my perspective. So second solution for building a trustworthy AI is making interpretable artificial intelligence method. So what is that interpretable? We know that deep learning is performing extremely well, but how it is performing extremely well, nobody can explain that. So here explainability is being included in the deep learning architecture. And let us see how that explainability can be done. So if we take the artificial intelligence technology, what I said in the initial slides, rule-based learning, it is producing less accuracy, but how it is producing the output, the explanation is high. X-axis is your explanation and Y-axis is your accuracy. And as the machine learning algorithms have evolved, the explanation part is getting reduced and slightly accuracy was improving. And currently we are in this particular era after 2012, wherein the AlexNet was proposed. Deep learning has got a huge, tremendous improvement in the accuracy, but it totally lacks explanation. So we can say that ML or deep learning models, they are actually acting like a black box. We cannot explore what is happening within that black box. Somehow it is producing the output. How can I rely on that output? For example, in medical diagnosis, it is performing well with some 99% accuracy. Means for every 100 image, 99 images will be correctly classified and one image will be wrongly classified. So the doctors will be worried whether this prediction is among 1 or among the 99. So they cannot trust this method technology. So second solution to improve the trustworthiness is to make the black box model to have some explainability. That is what I said. It is performing well, but why it has made this decision and why not some other decision? When can I trust this and when not to trust this? Nothing, no explanation is provided in this particular normal deep learning technology. Now, if I'm able to explain, then
Continue. Ma'am, you can unmute yourself. Yeah, continue.
So now we are going to include the explainability over here. Now let us assume, just leave out the machine or the deep learning or machine learning. This is a picture of a cat. How do we say this is a cat? We have some intelligence and we are making some definition, decision that this is a cat. For example, the cat is having this sensory organ. I think we call it as whiskers, and this ears, and then the fur-like skin. So based on these things, we are making a decision that this is a cat. Similarly, if the deep learning algorithm is able to give a decision, this algorithm has detected the image as cat because it has fur, whiskers, claws, and the ears. Because of this features, the algorithm has made a decision in favor of cat. If this explanation is provided by the system, then definitely we can believe that system. So how it is going to provide, let us see. Suppose if the decision is, if the explainability is given and it corresponds to wrong prediction also, we can make some modification either in the input or in the algorithm to make a correct prediction. So that is the beauty of explainability. And how this explainability is being done? Mostly it will be given by means of visual explanation. I have given some example. This is a dog of breed golden retriever, and when this image is given for classification by to a GoogleNet, it is making correct prediction with a probability of 0.58. But why GoogleNet is making a decision in favor of this correct class golden retriever when it is investigated using this technology? I'll say what is this GradCam later. And here the red colored portion shows that the network actually looks into this portion of the image. So the top portion of the face and the ears together, it has made GoogleNet to decide in favor of golden retriever. Again, another visualization technique called occlusion sensitivity. This is making, again, it is showing that GoogleNet is looking at the eyes of the dog and making a decision golden retriever. How I'm saying eyes is wherever the red colored portion is there, that is where the GoogleNet, the network is seeing, which means the activation, those neurons are highly activated. That is what is the concept behind interpretation. Another example, this is a shoe belonging to a class called loafer. GoogleNet is producing a correct prediction. Why it is making such a correct prediction? Looking on the portion where we insert the feet. See there, that is where the red colored part is there. So this region along with the tip of the shoe, this is making a contribution to make a decision in favor of a shoe. Another example for wrong interpretation, I'll say. Now, when this glass image is given to a webcam for classification by GoogleNet, now the GoogleNet, we are actually focusing on the cup, but the GoogleNet is making a prediction as buckle. Why? Because more than this part, the network is actually seeing this buckle. So how can we correct the prediction? We can make it is actually a live prediction. You are focusing it to the webcam. So we can focus only the cup to the webcam, and we can hide the other portion of the image. So by including this interpretability, what happens? Let us see. So this is the trade-off graph between the explainability and the performance. So here, this is where the actual state-of-the-art CNNs are there. They have high accuracy. They have high accuracy, but they lack explainability. So here, but what we need is, we need high accuracy and also high explainability. So CapsNet is somewhere over here. I said CapsNet will perform better, but why still the accuracy has come down? It is because of the complexity. So if you incorporate explainability within the capsule network, we can make the capsule network to perform with high accuracy and also with the high explainability. Once this explainability is there, definitely we can decide this is we can make a decision whether to believe the system or not to believe the system. So there are many different methods for this providing interpretation or explanation. So I have taken only 3 different methods and I'll explain you. And this particular paper, it has done a very good survey of all possible. I have listed only a few explainability algorithm, but in reality, there are many applications, many algorithms. You can refer this paper. So what this class activation mapping is doing is, at the output of the final convolution layer, you have a weights of the neuron, and that weights will be transformed to a heat map like image. And then when it is overlapped on the original image, why the decision is made in favor of this dog. See here, if this map is overlapped onto this image, the red color portion falls onto the face of the dog belonging to the breed Australian Terrier. So it is making the decision. So now this deep learning algorithm is providing an explanation why it has making a decision in favor of this particular class. So this is one algorithm, and GradCam, what it does is the gradient of this activation mapping. This is CAM, and GradCam will take the gradient of derivative of the activation mapping to provide explanation. This is another method called occlusion sensitivity. So what the entire image has to be divided into several smart grid, and at a time we have to mask one grid by means of a gray color square and give it to a classifier. When the actual required desired portion is masked, the classification accuracy will come down. So from that, systematically doing scanning over the every portion of the image where the accuracy has gone too low, that portion is contributing towards the classification decision. That this method is doing the giving the explanation in this by means of this technique. So here the decision is made in favor of, this is actually called as French horn. And why this is made in favor of French horn is this portion. When it is overlap, it will correspond to this portion. It is making a decision. So here combining explainability and capsule network is the current trend in the research to provide a very high accuracy and a believable, trustable network. And this explainability, coming to the case studies, explainability is employed in COVID images, and for Alzheimer image, it is making a correct prediction. This is an example for wrong prediction. So it is showing the position where there is no skull. So from that, either the input or the algorithm can be fine-tuned to produce a better accuracy. Again, for pneumonia and COVID-19, it is being used. For breast cancer, some amount of papers are there in this particular part of explainability, but not more papers. Again, you can work on this also. The drawback is actually we don't have any ground truth. It is not providing any quantified metric to provide how well it is working. It is providing explanation in a human understandable way. Only we can understand whether it is working correct or not. There is no methodology to quantify it. And one more thing, only an expert, as far as medical images are concerned, only an expert can identify whether the explanation is correct or not. This is what is the drawback. And the third methodology, third solution, what I personally feel is, as far as medical diagnosis is concerned, you have to definitely make a human expert, nothing but a clinician and a radiologist into the system to make a clinically eligible models. So normally with the human, without, let us assume there is no AI at all. The radiologist is diagnosing. He will very well diagnose. But the problem is there may be some hidden features or patterns which the radiologist may miss. So that is what is the problem with human experts missing tumor cases. But this machine learning and deep learning, it will not, in most cases, it is not missing any case, but additionally it is saying some non-cancerous image as cancer. That is what is false positive. So combining these two, there are two disadvantages. One is human is missing the actual diagnosis, and the algorithm is, AI is producing over prediction, producing more false positive. Now, if you integrate both the two, then through a radiologist, you can reduce the false positives produced by the ML or CAD device, DL algorithm. And with the help of ML and DL algorithm, you can actually reduce the missing tumors. So both in combination, they can achieve a better enhanced performance. My personal experience for my for PhD and also for my current PDF research, I am totally associated with the doctor. So I know if you are given any liver images, to some extent, I know where is the lesion, what is the type of lesion, where is the vascularity, vessels, and what is it, everything. To some extent, I know. Only then I'm able to produce a better interpretation of the thing. Apart from liver images, when I'm also worked with COVID-19 images and also ECG and EEG. But I can do the classification, everything I can do. But while writing the inference, I lack domain knowledge. So that is what, whenever a human expert is there, you are attached to a doctor or a clinician, definitely you can produce clinically acceptable AI models. And the summary is, the artificial intelligence technology, it continues to emerge in all fields. But I said it has some drawbacks. And where in applications with high risk, even a single or a very low misinterpretation cannot be compromised. So we have to go for a better algorithm or developing robust algorithm and including explainability in a black box model and including a human expert in the loop. In my perspective, together it will make you build trustworthy AI. So with this, I conclude my session on this, how to improve the trustworthiness in the deep learning algorithm. And as a takeaway, I just want to say one thing. All these algorithms, even the capsule network and the explainability algorithms, everything is, a base code is available in GitHub. For almost for MNIST dataset, it is there. You can take that code and modify that to your dataset and include your novelty, and then you can publish, and then you can even provide come out with a good clinical model and can even apply for patent and so on. So this is what is I planned. I think I have completed within 1 hour.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you ma'am for this informative session. So any attendees who have any queries related to this topic, you can directly ask ma'am, or you can either write it in the chat box. It will be read out. So anyone?
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Sabina. I'm a faculty in TKM Engineering College, Kollam. And I'm also working in medical images. And my PhD is in automatic detection of mitosis in histopathological breast images. Okay, so actually the CNN is what from the presentation, what I understood is it is rotation. Usually it is rotation invariant.
CNN will not work properly with the if there is any rotation in the image.
Suppose we are including that rotated images, and suppose we are given, or suppose it is trained as the actual one. If it is in the case of face images, suppose the rotated images also given as the actual face images, then I think it will work.
Yeah, that's what I said. CNN, while augmenting your data set, if that exact degree of rotation is included in the augmentation data while preparing your augmented data store, definitely CNN will work well. But to believe, you cannot feed in all 360 degrees of rotation. That is
okay. Fine. So usually we are including a specific angle of rotation.
Yes.
Okay.
If you know what sort of rotation will be introduced, then if you include those, no worries, CNN will work.
Okay. And regarding the segmentation, I think it is slide number 12. Just can you give an explanation how the segmentation is working based on the CNN architecture?
Since you are already working with CNN, you know for every image, you will associate a label, which is nothing but a categorical label.
Okay.
You have an image, categorical label, let us assume 2 categories are there. One is cancer and the other one is non-cancer.
Yeah.
But for CNN, what you have to give is, this is the images, and here the label is also an image. Look, this part, the label is also image, wherein the segmented portion of the image, the ground truth of the segmentation should also be given. In a normal CNN, image input.
Okay. We are giving the data set as the labeled images.
Class is also an image of same dimension.
Okay. So, and I think there is even pixel-wise segmentation is also there in the case of segmentation. Pixel-wise labeling.
Pixel-wise classification. It is classifying.
Yeah. And one more question is actually in medical imaging, we are making models with a fixed number of training and testing testing images, right? So is it good to test for them? Because if you are taking the patient case, because there is a variety of cases. Suppose I am taking my work, it is breast pathology. So mitosis, sometimes that may depend, or that may vary, depends upon the patient. So if I am creating a model with a less number of, or sometime I may use only 20 to 30 patients, because due to the computation power, due to the lack of computation power. So is it a suitable framework to for actual diagnosis?
Actually, if you want to go for a high accuracy, obviously our data set should be large.
Yeah, yeah.
Challenge
Yeah.
with all the medical images are limited availability of data set.
Yeah.
If you want to go for a better model, you are able to come out with a better model with a smaller data set, well and good. Otherwise, you can go for some augmentation. Traditional augmentations are there, like as you said, rotation, translation, with some affine transformations, it is there. But if you want to have, still if you are not happy with this, you can go for some generative adversarial methods, wherein you can generate your own images. Artificially, you can go for some synthetic images
Okay.
that you can include.
Okay. And another difficulty is getting association and getting the ground truth, as well as a data set. Actually, I have during my PhD work, there is a lot of difficulty in getting images.
You work with standard database images or hospital?
No. Yeah, it is a data set from a biomedical competition, that is mitosis atypia challenge was there in 2014.
Okay.
So I have attended that competition, and I got third place in that one. So I can use that data set, but finally with the Trivandrum RCC, at the end of the work only, I could get some images.
Okay.
So that is the issue.
It's actually the normal issues we are facing with medical imaging.
Yeah.
So we have to overcome the challenges with the existing opportunities, like a model, what other can be done. We have to think of in that angle, and then we have to.
And another, this is using this RCNN, faster RCNN. It was taking that is a lot of hours to train the images. That is another criteria. That is even yes, ma'am.
We actually need a GPU. The CPU will not be sufficient.
Yeah. With the GPU also, it is because pathology images, histopathology images are very large in size. So with the labeled images, it is this faster RCNN. You have to give multiple labeling and feed it as input itself without any segmentation we are giving.
Yes.
Yeah.
This
so, and another thing is, suppose we are removing this max pooling, then only the same computation power, it will require a large computation power. If from the CNN, suppose we are removing the max pooling layer.
I couldn't hear you, ma'am.
Hello, if in the CNN model, suppose we are removing the max pooling layer, that also increase the computation.
That's what I said. Capsule network, though it is said to be, actually I am in the beginning stage of the capsule. I didn't even start working on it. I just doing the I'm just doing the initial survey only I'm doing. But it is actually removing the max pooling will increase the computational complexity, and then developing a capsule is also increasing the computational complexity. It will be highly complex. So definitely it will take more hours or days to train the network.
Yeah.
So that we have to work on it.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. It was an opening to a new area. Thanks.
Thank you.
It was a wonderful presentation. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am, there is a question in the chat box from Rahul R. Like in your personal experience, what is the accuracy of DL in medical imaging?
We cannot say this is what is the accuracy of imaging and all, but it basically depends on the model you have constructed, and also it basically depends on the quality of the image you have considered for training and the amount of training. So even we cannot very blindly say always deep learning will come out with 90% accuracy. Sometimes the accuracy may go even below simple machine learning algorithm. So it all depends on image quality and your data set size and the robustness of the algorithm.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
So anyone else? So I think that's it. Let's wind up this session. So thank you, ma'am, for your valuable presence and cooperation. And thank you to all the participants who have joined us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again for giving me this opportunity to be a part of this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Sabik, sir.
Okay, thank you. We'll have again later part. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you, sir.